this thing down. Okay. That.
All right, what's going on, folks? JV wins, Dogon SS, another conscious approach video. The day is October 11th. Pleased to have you joining us here as we talk about another week's worth of trending topics going on in culture and society. Before we begin with this week's video, I did want to take the time out to say thank you to all of our recent subs. Certainly appreciate it. And also want to say that if you are not a sub and you are new to this channel, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, like this video. It comes at no cost to you, of course. Comment on this video. We do pay attention. I pay attention. I respond. And, we just certainly appreciate everybody supporting logical content. So I always want to get that disclaimer out there to continue to, help us grow this channel. Slowly but surely, we are hitting the marks, most indeed. So with that out of the way, last week we had a Kanye topic, and I think you had mentioned that Kanye is batting 1,000 on conscious approach topics, and he continues to bat 1,000. At this point, Kanye on this channel is like Barry Bonds if he wasn't using steroids. Like that's how much Kanye is guaranteed to hit it out of the park on this channel. But we are back talking about Kanye once again because he referenced Lizzo in a recent interview that he did with Tucker Carlson. People get mad because Kanye's on doing interviews on Fox News and he's with Tucker Carlson, who's a conservative. We ain't gonna get into all of that. That's not necessarily relevant to this, unless you want to make the case that it is somehow. But Kanye did an interview with Tucker Carlson. This was after the whole White Lives Matter situation. So I think the impetus for his appearance on the Tucker Carlson show was in lieu of the backlash that he was incurring because of White Lives Matter or because of the White Lives Matter shirt that he wore. But, obviously it was a long form interview. So he touched on a lot of other things, including some interesting comments that he made about Lizzo and health and weight loss and how the media tries to weaponize weight loss or lack thereof to sort of, I guess he was suggesting that it was the media's way to try and keep people down, specifically black folks. So I thought that this was real interesting, and I figured we would speak on it a little bit. So we'll go ahead and play a little bit of what Kanye had to say. It's not very long, but you get the gist of what he meant, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Now let's talk about Gabby and my good friend Lizzo. Lizzo works with my trainer, a friend of mine, Harley Pasternak. When Lizzo loses 10 pounds and announces it, the bots, that's a term for people it's like telemarketer callers, like on Instagram, they attack her for losing weight because the media wants to put out a perception that being overweight is the new goal when it's actually unhealthy. Let's get aside the fact of whether it's fashion and vogue, which it's not. Let's just, or if someone thinks it's attractive, to each his own. It's actually clinically unhealthy. And for people to promote that, it's demonic.
Can I ask? Yeah. I've noticed this also.
Yeah.
Why do you think they would want to promote unhealthiness among the population?
It's a genocide of the black race.
Wow. All right. A genocide of the black race. So we've talked about Lizzo before, and I think both of us respectively kind of always made it clear, hey man, to each their own when it comes to their individual preferences. But at the same time, there is something to be said about why we have moved to a point in our current culture where we both believe that body positivity at times gets taken too far in terms of it being spun into something that should be embraced. Like being overweight is not only something that is socially acceptable, but something that folks should aspire to because it's just as good and it's just as beautiful as not being overweight. But Kanye took it in different directions, talking about genocide of the race and all of that kind of stuff. And you've mentioned the point specifically about, hey, health is wealth. So I don't, whatever when it comes to how you feel about people being overweight or not. But what I'm looking at is people need to be more healthy in general. So I just wanted to put that out there because it reminded me of some of the stuff that you had said when we had touched on this type of stuff in the past. But Penny, for your thoughts on what you had to say about Kanye's comments.
Well, needless to say, I agree. And by the way, if you guys have not seen the entire interview, I think they chopped it up in a lot of unnecessary pieces, like it's DJ Vlad or something. But you can still go ahead and watch it. Me personally, I think it's a very powerful interview. He goes on a lot of tangents. He talks about a lot of things, but it's all centered and very centric. One of the more focused Kanye's I've seen in quite a bit. And I think his stint away from the Kardashian family and that influence has really helped him find himself and speak with a bass and a boom in his voice that he hasn't had in a while. And with this topic where he was addressing the obesity, like I said, I agree with it 100%. And it doesn't necessarily have to be obesity. It can just be overweightness. And one thing that I have realized within the black community, I mean, even though this is going on everywhere, but one thing that I did notice within the black community is that there is a healthy portion of sisters in particular who are overweight. And it's I don't know what's going on with that. um you know I've seen women that were, healthy size, and then, give them a few years and they've gotten bigger. And yeah, man, I think that something has to be said. Kanye saying it for the overarching agenda to target black people specifically. I can't really call that one. I don't know where to begin with that. And I'm Mr. Tinfoil Hat guy. So I can't really see that angle, but nevertheless, touching on what we talked about before with the body positivity and all that other stuff, all of those things aid and abet this type of behavior that's going on and is quite rampant. So that those are my initial thoughts on this. But how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, lately I'm team Kanye a lot. Um, I guess I just find I just believe that I'm team common sense. So, you know, unfortunately, diversity of thought is a notion that is suppressed amongst black people, unfortunately. Meaning, if you express an idea that goes contrary to what the collective has been taught to believe, you get deemed an outsider. And I think Kanye is experiencing a lot of that when he expresses his ideas. I think there's a lot of that going on.
Mm.
Um, Now, this really has nothing to do with Lizzo. It's interesting. Lizzo kind of gets introduced into these types of talking points because she's just become the poster child for body positivity, not just for black people but for everybody, it seems, especially for younger generations like the current culture. But this is sort of irrelevant with respect to Lizzo, and there's a general theme here that I do think that we should pay attention to. Like, I've been going to the gym for a long time. So I've been big on the fitness thing for a long time. Well over a decade of my life, I have been in the gym. I've had several gym memberships. I have been big on working out. And the reason why I say that is because I think at this point, being someone who has been in the gym as heavy as they have, I think I've collected enough observational data to surmise who is in these places and who is not. And I've been in multiple gyms in multiple cities, multiple states. So I've seen who goes to the gym and who doesn't over extended periods of time. And you can call me what you want, and you can get mad if you want. I'm merely reporting what I see. And what I see by and large is the least represented group of people in the gym are Black women. Now, overall, I'll say the least represented group of people in the gym, period, is Black people, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm targeting Black women. But within the population of African Americans, if you will, I see for every one Black woman in the gym, there's at least 5 Black men. Black men are in the gym at a pace that far exceeds the rate that Black women are going to the gym for. Now, you can blame that on all you want to blame that on: having kids, raising kids, being a single mother, blah, blah, blah. All the excuses that people have come up with to try and substantiate why this is the facts. The facts are that we, as a subset of American society, represent the least amount of people who have embraced that gym life. And I don't even really think this is me as a psycho. Like, I'm a psycho. I go 5 days a week, 3 hours a day. So I'm an outlier. But generally speaking, I'm talking about just normal 2 days a week for 30 minutes a day type stuff. We don't even do that. And I think it speaks to why I think as a whole, the body positivity contingent in social justice America 2022 has swelled to such a sizable portion of the population who like to parrot the speech that looking like Lizzo is just as beautiful as the opposite. Looking like a woman of a more slender frame. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think I know where it comes from. So, I tend to kind of root everything back to a source. And I think a lot of this is rooted in economics. I agree with you. I don't really necessarily see the angle when it comes to Black genocide, as Kanye posited. But what I will say is I do think that there is a concerted effort to maintain the gap between haves and have-nots. I do think that in America, it pays to continue to market certain messages and forms of mind control to disenfranchised people, because disenfranchised people are more easily swayed because they know no better, because they're not a part of the affluent class in America who has the economics and the resources necessary to learn any better. And it just so happens that Black people most disproportionately comprise disenfranchised communities because of, economics, basic economics. Open up any book on economics and you can learn that disproportionately Black people comprise the largest portion of what we would constitute disenfranchised people in this country. And that is what, fast food industry, the consumer industry, all of these various industries market most heavily to disenfranchised people, because disenfranchised people are more likely than not to patronize these various industries, because when you don't have much, you'll spend your money on damn near anything because you don't know no better. And I bring that around to Kanye's point because, Kanye talks about Black genocide. Like you, I'm not going to go that far. But what I will say is I do think that America would prefer for there to be a genocide on behalf of poor people. I do think America does not like poor people. And I think any opportunity that America has to perpetuate certain aspects of American society that target poor people and keeps them poor, they're going to take advantage of that. And health is one of those things. So, I think that there's a genocide on behalf of America towards poor people. And, that is mostly Black and brown people. And when it comes to the health aspect of that, this is why you see a lot of these things going on where you have these forms of mind control that are being put out there in the masses, whether it's on social media, all forms of new media, podcasts, YouTube, and the like, trying to suggest that being overweight is the good thing to do, the right thing to do, the popular thing to do. I think it is one of the covert ways that America is trying to wage upon poor people to keep them poor. And optically, that's going to look like it is black genocide because, like I said, black people most disproportionately comprise poor and disenfranchised communities. But I don't think that what he is saying is totally off base. I think it has a lot to do with economics, and I do think that, generally speaking, there is this weird movement going on in westernized society, not just in America, but in all westernized nations, where we're trying to tell people, hey, it's cool to be overweight. Hey, it's cool to not get educated. Hey, um, it's cool to make a living by breaking the law. Watch all your favorite shows on streaming platforms and on cable television. And I think that those are roundabout, covert mechanisms that are being subtly introduced into poor communities to keep people poor, so that the wealth gap can continue to increase, so that the haves can continue to have more and the have-nots can continue to have less. So that was kind of what I gleaned from Kanye's comments. I do think that he's on to something. And I think it has little to do with Lizzo. I think he was using Lizzo as an example to make his point. But I do think that there is some of that going on. And I'm not tinfoil hat either. I'm not tinfoil hat guy either. But it just seems that these sort of things tend to target, disenfranchised people more often than not. And I've just seen this a lot. Like I said, I've been in the gym a lot. I've been on the health kick a lot. You don't see very many black people in Whole Foods. You don't see very many black people in Trader Joe's. You don't see very many black people at farmers markets. There are, but they're sprinkled far and few in between when it comes to, juxtaposed to other groups of people. And I think that, mechanisms that are being put in place to keep poor people poor are exacerbating this dynamic, and I think that the weight and the health thing is a part of that.
Yeah, well said. A few things popped in my head as you were talking. I kind of reached for my tinfoil hat as you were as you were talking. I kind of reached for it, and because I get an angle, and I'll explain that angle. So, uh, I used to, I still do, not as much as I used to, but because I kind of watched them all. But I used to watch a lot of lectures, Afrocentric lectures and stuff like that, and they're just bringing up various topics that's going on in society or what have you. And one of the talking points that were used was that imagery on television and how certain groups of people are portrayed. And if you can think in your mind's eye, I don't know how many, white women are out there that are famous, that are, shoved in people's face, that are overweight. But then you go to, in the black, community, and black videos, black movies and stuff like that, there's the big mama, there's the big loud black lady, and she's always loud and big. And there's stuff like that going on in a lot of our stuff. And they also played the angle of you would see these, the white women who are in shape, they're on the front cover of magazines. They're seen as, the quintessential woman in America, that this is the hottest woman, the hottest list of whatever. And it's always those type of prototypical women. And then, but black people generally, it's not really given to us where we have a super hot black woman who's leading in Hollywood and all this other good stuff. And so, in Kanye's interview here, he was doing a lot of talking about Hollywood and talking down on Hollywood and how it's liberal and it has its agendas and they push certain ideologies. And so, that may be one of the angles that he was reaching at, as far as how it's promoted more over here than over there. Like when we had brought this up before, I think during the Lizzo conversation, where we were talking about Adele and how Adele she was like one of the, the only, white
Mhm.
women out there who was overweight, talented as all get out, but it was a thing. She eventually lost that weight, but people were, and you brought that up in the sense that people were trying to shame her for losing weight.
Yeah.
But
Well, they weren't
still,
trying to, they were. Well,
right.
yeah, she wasn't feeling shame for doing so, but yeah, there was a concerted effort
Hmm.
to say, "Why did you lose that weight? You used to be one of us." It was very disgusting.
Hmm. And yeah, and
Yeah.
that's kind of one of those things that I kind of felt too, just watching TV over time. We get better representation nowadays. Not that slender bills is a thing or whatever, but it's just promoting good health. And so the promotion of good health within the community is also an awesome thing. And just like how you mentioned as far as eating choices, not too many people at Trader Joe's and Whole Foods and stuff like that. And I can attest to that. And the times that I sprinkle in there and I try to, do some grocery shopping, it's always all right, hey, black people in here.
Yeah.
But it's just like, that one
Yeah.
guy with that one lady, it's never really, they're not in there like Piggly Wigglies,
Mhm.
or Kroger's. And
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
options at Piggly Wigglies and Kroger's are far worse. And you know, on a package of anything, there's an entire paragraph of chemicals that nobody can pronounce. And so, of course, those also lead to health issues and things of that nature down the line. And this ties into like food deserts and all this other stuff that
Yep.
people
Yep.
people talk about when it comes to the black community and things of that nature.
Yep.
But culturally, and we always talk about how black people cling too hard to hip hop. I think we cling way too hard on soul food, air quote soul food, and soul food being derived from, well, slave cuisine, and just eating leftovers and eating stuff that other people didn't want to eat. And so the chitlins, the hog mogs and all this other stuff, and the
Yep.
neck bones. Oh
Yep.
yeah, you got collard greens, but you gotta throw some pig in there somehow. You know, you got like stuff like grits. Like you're just eating nothing. There's no nutrients or anything in there. You're just eating stuff. Biscuits, gravy, you name it. Everything's got butter, cheese, and salt on it. And then we holler and try to figure out why heart disease is so high in our community. Well, it's because we're eating stuff that gives you heart disease. Oh no, I'm genetically predisposed. No, you're culturally
Mhm.
predisposed.
Exactly.
You're eating this stuff because you feel as though this is what makes you black. Sorry, sir, that's not what makes you black. And so when we got all of that rhetoric going on, oh yeah, man, she be throwing down in the kitchen. Oh yeah, what she made? Cornbread, and I love me some cornbread, but still cornbread and some biscuits, some gravy, and starch. Starchitarian, starch, pig and meat and fat and butter. And so when that is our cuisine, yeah, you're gonna see a lot of that stuff going on. Men in general, it's a testosterone thing. We just want to get active and we just want to move around, and we just do that. And it's kind of a natural thing. And being in shape as a man is kind of important. So we take an emphasis on that. And for sisters, there's this thing where it got real convoluted between uh thickness and overweightness. And oh yeah, I'm thick. And it's like, no, you're overweight. There's women that are thick, and then there's women that are overweight. So and by the way, I gotta give this disclaimer. And so I've said this before, I have no problem when it comes to bigger size women. I've dated them. All right. So I don't have a problem with that. It's more cushion for me, if you know what I'm saying. But Overall, I want them to get healthy though, because this is fun now for me. But over time, it's like, all right, if we get old together, how is this going to shape out? How is this going to look when, we're trying to reach 60 and 70 years old? Those things don't really pan out that well. So, health complications are soon to ensue if these things persist. So it's not that I'm trying to shame people, make people feel bad. I want people to get healthy, man. And just like how Kanye said, it's clinically unhealthy. I'm not, he's not saying this because, oh yeah, those people over there look hotter than our people. No. It's our people are sick and in hospitals. And what leads to that is this mentality of just allowing it to be okay. So again, I'm not hollering from the rafters to make anybody feel bad or sideways, anything like that. The only thing I'm saying is get healthier, So
Yeah, I agree. The reason why I won't go so far as to say it's a see, it's interesting. Like it's a nuanced issue, right?
mhm,
Because I can say that I don't think something is I can say that something is not rooted in any sort of racial component. However, if I believe that it's rooted in economics, like I said, on the back end, there are racial manifestations of that because economics does have, you know what I'm saying? Like
mhm,
economics is rooted in certain racial parameters, right?
mhm, mhm,
So, but the reason why optically I won't say that it is rooted in any sort of racial attack is because of the example that okay, so you mentioned Adele. Adele was one of the big examples that I point to. Another one that I point to is Rebel Wilson.
mhm,
Rebel Wilson was the big girl who was in the Pitch Perfect movies. So she lost a ton of weight and she was attacked for it. She was attacked for it. Um, and she was attacked because, much like Adele, that the social justice 2022 body positivity contingent saw that as we just lost one of our champions, and people feel aggrieved because of that. They
mhm,
didn't like it, and those are two Caucasian women. So I think across the board it's more of an economic observation than it is a racial observation, but you'll see more of it playing out with black and brown people specifically because there's just more poor, disenfranchised, overweight, lacking in resources, black and brown people in the world. Um, so, that's kind of why I do believe it's an economics issue, but I do think that it's a real thing that is happening. I do think that in our current culture, where it's all about anarchy and it's less about maintaining any sort of moral decorum. We just want to strip everything down and make it we just want to make it a no holds barred grudge wrestling match where we don't care about rules or decorum and morals, and it's just, hey, everybody do what you want to do and live how you want to live, and we will love you all the same for it. I'm gonna tell you straight up,
mhm,
I per se do not have an issue with overweight people or women, but what I have a problem with is you trying to chastise me for having my preferences when it comes to physical standards. That's where I say, okay, well, let's back up. Like, I never said at any point that I had an issue with you or what you like to do in terms of your weight or your shape. But if I am entitled to my preference, I'm going to have them. So you can't really then reserve the right to have an issue with me because of what my preferences are. So that's kind of where I have an issue when it comes to that. And I've run into that several times throughout my lifetime where people will kind of come at me in a sort of judgmental tone because I choose to embrace the fitness life and they don't. And it's like, look, don't have a problem with me and my preferences. All that, if you do, it just kind of speaks to whatever your insecurities are, and that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. But otherwise, as long as we can agree to that, I don't have an issue with what anybody does when it comes to their weight or their body type or whatever. But I do think that Kanye is onto something when it comes to there's something going on in this country with this stuff, and I think it's adversely affecting people from low income communities. That's my personal inclination. I think the reason why you see more of the hot people in Hollywood or whatnot that you referenced previously that come from, other communities, whether they're white, Latino, even Asian, is because there's more of those groups of people who don't reside on a low socioeconomic ladder. And so they're less susceptible to being told that it's okay to be this way. And I don't know whether Kanye was getting at that, but I interpreted that from what he said, because I do think that that's a real thing. Like I said, I've been going to the gym for many, 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 many years, and overall, my people are the least represented group of people in these places, and specifically Black women. And I don't want to hear anything about food or genetic predisposition. I don't want to hear nothing about any of that, because it does not excuse the sheer gap that exists between representation of Black females versus females from other communities. It doesn't explain it. Like, it might explain if the ratio was like 2 to 1 or even 3 to 1, non-Black women versus Black women in the gym, I might entertain that. But the gap is so huge. It's more like 6 or 7 or 8 to 1. And that gap is too wide for me to believe that some of these rationales go so far as to provide a justification for why we aren't in there, embracing more of a fitness lifestyle and being more of a health oriented individual collectively as people than these other groups of people. There's something else going on. And I personally think that it's rooted in economics. And that's
Yeah.
what I took from what Kanye has to say. And I don't think that he's wrong with that.
No, you nailed it. It's a lot to do with economics, and so it's a lot to do with economics and a lot to do with cultural beliefs, as I mentioned. And
Right.
so when I look at other people's culture, so I moved out here to Texas. Yeah, I'm in Texas, y'all. Whoa. So I moved out here to Texas. So I grew up in South Florida. There's a lot of Hispanic people there, but not many Mexicans. So I moved out here to Austin, and there's Mexicans everywhere. There's more in San Antonio for what I hear, right? But there's a lot of them here, and there's a lot of Mexican food. I love Mexican food, but Mexican food don't love me, so I can't eat it as much. All right, but whenever I'm eating like Mexican food or Hispanic food in general, it's cheating. I say it's cheating. They got beans in there, they got rice, they got a healthy amount of chicken, and it's in a
Cheese.
and it's cheese, for the little whatever, and it's in a wrap. So it's not very heavy starchy breads, and it's in a wrap. And then they eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it's very balanced. It's very balanced food throughout the day. So even if they eat a lot, they're not eating like it's crazy fatty, it's within their culture, it's built in that they can maintain a healthy balanced diet basically. And same thing with Asian people. There's always something green on their plate. They're always putting vegetables or something in there, and it's whatever. I don't know how many Black people I done ran across where they don't want to eat vegetables. Now I know this goes across other communities, not just Black, but I talk to Black people.
Right.
And so when I'm hanging around and they just don't like vegetables, I say, you don't eat anything green? They don't eat anything green. It's like, well, what do you eat? And you look at their diet, it's just starch and meat and cheese. And it's just over and over and over again. And so culturally, our diets are out of whack. And it's like I said, we subscribe way too much to soul food, which I have grown to not like that term anymore. And to speak on the socioeconomic part, so just like how you mentioned, man. So there's people who are Hispanic and stuff like that who ain't got it. But like I just said in my last point, their culture has a diet that makes sense. There's people who live in the islands who they ain't got it, but their diet makes sense. I mean, it's fruits, it's vegetables, it's greens. They got a little stuff over here, a little stuff over there too, but it's a lot more balanced. But here in America, when it's just soul food, soul food, soul food, and that's it, man, that stuff is death cuisine.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of that stuff either. So somebody can say, well, I know some people who ain't got money and they not overweight and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's what they decide to eat. But overall, as an overarching cultural way of going about life, if you want to look at black people in America, they have an unhealthy diet overall. And if they incorporated more healthy stuff, but everything that they have, like I said, that's green, they throw fat in it, and
Yeah.
that's not the answer. So yeah, I think this is a lot more nuanced than I thought it would have been. There's a lot of angles to this, but I think we hit some good angles to this to just to open some people's minds on if they haven't already thought these things. And if we're
Yeah.
giving you guys some confirmation bias, right on. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because
Yeah.
we're all on the same page here with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I just, and even, because I agree wholeheartedly with the cultural diet part, but it's like, even if you do believe in like the soul food and all of that kind of stuff, it is what it is. But like mixing activity into your life in order to balance and offset that goes a long way.
Yeah, it
And I
does.
just feel like a lot of us, we ain't in a gym. We ain't
Mhm.
really doing it like that. And I don't want to hear from the small percentage of black people out there, black women especially, who want to come out of the woodwork. Oh, I'm in the gym, ma'am, you're an outlier. Okay. You know damn well that when you go to the gym, you might see maybe one or two other women who look like you in that whole building full of hundreds of people. Okay, so there's something going on with us where we just ain't about that gym life, and that I don't agree with. Um, I do think that there's something to be said about the whole exercise and fitness aspect of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know so much that Kanye called it, genocide of the black race or whatever he said. I don't know that it's so much black genocide, but I do contend that I do think that it's economics genocide.
Yeah.
Um, and it affects everybody who exists in that ecosystem, which is a lot of black people, brown people too, but more disproportionately black people. So that's why it's important. Again, people get turned off. Kanye's gotten to the point now where he's such a pariah. Anytime he says something, because people are so mad at things that he said in the past, they don't want to take what he's saying in the moment and determine how much sense it makes. They just automatically want to disregard it because it's him. But this is another instance in which I think he's saying something that is true and that's happening, whether people want to listen to it or not.
No facts, and
Um,
I'll just say this, and this will be my last point. And I forgot what year I said this. This is some years back, but it really dawned on me. Because I think that's when I first started going to Whole Foods, and I started eating food out of there, and I was like, I feel better. I wasn't eating crazy stuff. At least I didn't think. But then I started eating the same kind of stuff, but from Whole Foods, and I felt cleaner.
yeah,
And but the prices at that time were out of my budget, and I was like, I can't keep this up, you know. And that's when I said, this is a life. What they've turned groceries into, what they turn food into, it's a survival game, and you have to be able to afford to eat healthy. And because even if you do eat greens and stuff like that from Piggly Wigglies, it's probably some conspiracy greens, hit with too many pesticides or something crazy. You're gonna feel that down the line. And so finding your way to more organic and cleaner foods to eat, it is the way to go. Eventually your body breaks down eating all that crap from the regular grocery store. And there has to be a decision made to go different. Now, I've seen all kinds of stuff where people talk about, well, organic still gets sprayed with pesticides, and yeah, it does, but not some of the illegal ones or the crazy ones that. So it's pick your poison, no pun intended, or pun intended, but still, it's a money game where you have to be able to afford to eat better over time, and that has to be a goal in life, to eat cleaner and eat better. and shop better. But yeah, all of those things, man, with those packages with paragraphs on the back of it, and it was just trail mix. You thought it was just trail mix, but there shouldn't. It should say walnuts, almonds, cranberries, or whatever. That's all it should say. It should not have other things on there. And when you have a whole entire paragraph of words you can't pronounce on something that's pretty basic, a honey bun, for instance, that's the things that should be avoided. And so, yeah, it's a money game when it comes to being able to eat healthy. It's a money game in order to have gym memberships, even though you don't need a gym membership to work out. And one more thing, man, this is so deep, bro, because
Yeah, we gotta keep it moving, man. We gotta
I
keep it
know,
moving.
one more thing. When I moved out here to Austin, in the area in the neighborhood that I moved in, everybody's outside walking their dogs. I live in an area that's predominantly, white. Everybody's outside walking their dogs, jogging, and everybody. And it's like, yeah, I don't see this. I don't see this from where I came from. And but there's a level of, when they're jogging and running and walking dogs, there's a level of my bills are paid when they're doing that. There's a level of I'm good while I'm doing that. And for a lot of the people that I knew from the areas that I hung out in, they had a lot more stuff on their mind and a lot more stuff on their plate than to be doing the jogging at 6 a.m. or what have you. So it's a lot of variables that play into this. So I'm not casting stones. I'm not out here trying to say I'm better than or anything like that. I just think that this is a interesting topic that our people need to have a lot more of, so we can get out of this little funk that we're in, because we're definitely in a funk. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's that's why you basically just summed it up. I believe that this is an economics dynamic. It's
right,
not really a racial one, but it yields racial results on the back end, but it's rooted in economics. But these forms of mind control, which say, hey, be big, it's okay, we love you and it's great, you look just as good as a slim model even if you're big, all of these lies, poor people are more susceptible to those because they're already living that reality.
right,
So it's easy to continue to do it when you're being fed messages that reinforce it. So, it's something going on, man. It's a lot, culture, diet, all of that, but there's also a targeted effort to maintain that gap between the haves and have nots, and this is a part of it too. So,
word,
and kudos to people like Lizzo. Lizzo actually tries to do, and Lizzo, like I said, Lizzo gets brought in as like the poster child for a lot of these discussions. She's more of an innocent bystander. This is more of a referendum on what's going on in general.
yeah.
And I done seen it. We got to do better when it comes to that stuff. We really do. Um, all right. So